Let's get this going here. So welcome to the Destiny Massive Breakdowns hosting auditions. Reading for the part of Destiny Massive Breakdowns host. First up here, we've got Legoleflash. I hear you're very excited about doing intros. You've got a pretty decent resume, I suppose.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm excited to hear what you have, what you can bring. We've got a lot of other candidates to get through today, so we're going to keep it snappy here. Go ahead and give me your best take on the intro.
Welcome to Destiny Massive Breakdowns, episode 284. My name is Legoleflash. That's Lego, a.k.a. Lego L.E. Flash. And we've got Physics here. illPhysics, how's it going, man?
Hey, I'm hanging in there. Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you here. Oh, is that my part? Am I auditioning now? Are we tossing it off? that was so fluid. I thought that we were, that was part of your intro.
That was good. It's episode 286. Quick
note.
No.
I wrote down the last that I see. Okay, my bad, people.
Yeah. See, I didn't know which episode it was, and whenever my turn was coming up, I was definitely about to just say episode 6969, episode 420. Something. I remembered it was around that value based on the last episode that I heard, but.
Yeah, it's pretty close. All right, well, Mr. Legoleflash, we appreciate you coming in today. We'll have our people talk to your people. Definitely in the running here. But yeah, Mr. illPhysics, welcome to the studio. Also reading for the part of Destiny Massive Breakdowns host. Let's hear what you've got, sir. Loving the pedigree here.
Yo, welcome everyone to Destiny Massive Breakdowns, episode 4206969. My name is Tony, aka illPhysics, if you did not previously know me, and it's a great day. We're gonna have a good time.
Okay. All right. I like it. I thought you were here before. I'm gonna have to give you another note on that episode number, but we'll we'll be in touch. So we've got me to just kind of give a demo. This is what the intro normally sounds like here. Just the kind of this is the standard here.
This is the
notepad
cadence.
ready.
Yep, I'm ready.
Yeah, take notes. Me. Welcome to Destiny Massive Breakdowns, episode 286. My name is Kit Kutcha, and I'll be your host today as we take a whirlwind tour through the future. I am joined today by two phenomenal guardians, Legoleflash and illPhysics, aka Tony. I always got to throw that aka in there. You can't see. I appreciate that you also can't decide what your name is. Nobody knows if I'm Kit, if I'm Kutch. It's a mystery.
It's both. It's just when we get into an interpersonal conversation, I prefer to be called Tony. illPhysics is just kind of the platform name more than anything else.
Yeah, and Lego, you've never gone by LeFlash, which actually I don't blame you. I don't feel like that works.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But I'd get sued if I cut it off. So
yeah. I don't know if they've trademarked it for talking about Destiny, but it's probably best to play it safe.
Yeah, I'll end up as Bricks LeFlash or something. I like building things.
As someone who used to work at the patent and trademark office for 10 years. I would play it safe. Although, you could make an argument, but who wants to, go to court and make an argument, right? So
nobody wants to go to court against that Lego money.
Yeah.
All right. That's neither here nor there. We're here today following last week's very brief holiday special in which I made some big announcements. I implied that it was perhaps my last episode. I lied. This is my last episode, or is it? And so we're here. I mentioned last week that we were going to be introducing some new hosts, and I feel like we've just done that.
Wait, I got the part? For real?
Yes. You're hired.
I'm hired.
Yes.
First try. One take Lego.
Yeah. One take physics. That's all it. Honestly, I shouldn't even have made you guys read for this. Like that was, I'm surprised that I'm probably going to hear from your agents about that later. No, I'm super excited to share with everybody listening. Lego and Tony will be taking the rudder here on Destiny Massive Breakdowns, leading the breakdowns of the future. And I couldn't be more excited about the future of the show. So thank you both of you for stepping in. I was super scared when I accepted that job offer that like this was the end. I was like, crap, I did it. I killed the show, and I didn't. And I'm really, really, really happy that I didn't.
Yeah. I think a part of that is what you've built here, like as a community, not just a show, but a community of people. Because it sucked me in to the point where even if you did end it, like the community would go on. Like there's so many people here that are contributing to the game in different ways, and the podcast is the top of that, and then it just goes down to the Discord and to all the people interacting on Twitter and making this game more fun and more interesting and diving in these different ways. And so I think I can speak for everyone when we say like we thank you for what you've built here. And whenever you approached me about it, I was like, man, I have to help this continue in some way. Like I there's no way I could let it just not like disappear at all. I even if it was a difficult decision for me to say yes, I would have to like figure out a way to make it happen, because like I love the show, I love the people surrounding the show, and even how much it's gotten me into the game. Like there have been times where like I've just started listening to an episode and I'll be like, oh man, that pulse rifle, I never knew it could do that, or like, oh, I didn't dig into that perk as much as I wanted to. And so I hope that as me and Tony continue, that we can kind of take what y'all have started and kind of run with it through the next few months. And I'm excited to see what happens for you as well on your journey.
Me too.
So all that together, I'm just pumped for it all.
Yeah, and I know I can speak from Lego as well as myself and say that I'm definitely grateful for the opportunity, and we know we've got big shoes to fill. Massive Breakdowns is such a large part, I feel, of at least the forward facing like community, Destiny community. And Lego's absolutely right. There's just folks just digging into the nitty gritty behind the scenes, under the superficial layer of the game, and it's like clarity for them, Massive Breakdowns for Destiny 2. You just see a lot more. It enhances the experience, and I know I can speak for a lot of people when I say that, because my community feels the same way. So definitely appreciate it.
Hey, well, thank you guys. I wasn't looking for a big pat on the back, but it's always good to hear that it's made an impact. And I'm excited to be able to start listening to the show, because I haven't really been able to listen to it, because I just hearing your own voice is tough, especially when I actually do re-listen to parts of it while I'm like editing it to put it on YouTube. Mm-hmm. This is part of why I had to get somebody else to do the audio editing, because I couldn't listen to my own voice for hours. Editing every episode. And she didn't even play Destiny. We're going to get her into it, though.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm really excited to be able to listen.
I'm happy to come on real quick to be the one to, like, both of us to come on here and pat you on the back, because you can't end a final episode with you being the only one on and no one being able to say, like, this is awesome, like what you're going to do is awesome, what you've created is awesome, and the community around it is awesome, and we're hyped to see what comes, but we're gonna miss your presence here, and somebody has to be here to say that. It can't just be you. So I'm glad that we got to come on here and do this kind of transitional episode into the next phase of what things look like for a little while, because I didn't want you to do that alone. This is
a great opportunity to transition, not just for the Massive Breakdowns community, but like Lego's exactly right on that. It's just good to be here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so I've already, for folks in Discord, we'll start seeing if you guys pop into the Massive Breakdowns Discord, they'll see the logo next to your names now. So you're gonna get, you've got that shiny new flare. I made it Discord official, and I gotta say the Patrons Lounge is extremely excited to welcome you and possibly harass you. Start hanging out there. You're gonna learn what Patrons Lounge rhetoric is all about. It's a place that exists. I'll tell you that. Patrons know. Yeah, no, I tagged you guys in that channel just so you'd see it, because it's not something that people can normally see unless they've got access to it. And I think within like 20 minutes there were like 500 emojis on it.
Hey.
So yeah, everybody's pretty excited about it. So all right, that's as close to a baton as I can pass over the internet, but I'm excited to be passing it. And let's see here, we've got to do some of the standard info. So let's say some thanks here. I'm gonna take the chance to do some final thank yous on the show to some folks. In the last episode, I took the opportunity to just thank every single patron that I have a public name for. Didn't want to give any real names away, but Discord names I'm fine with calling out. So if you want to hear your handle called out, check out that episode. If you are a sponsor guardian, you are about to hear your name called out right now. Thank you to The Shazzle, Starscream, Deacon, Sylv, ASCII and Monk, Impetus, Blackhammer Tech, Binary Wolf, Zen SoCal, and This Moment. If you're listening and you would like to support Destiny Massive Breakdowns, you can visit destinymassivebreakdowns.com. Go ahead and click the link there to go to Patreon. You can also scroll down wherever you're listening to this, and you'll find links below to get more episodes of this show, to get episodes from Podcast versus Enemies, our PvE show. You'll also find links to the website and to Patreon and to YouTube if you're not currently on YouTube. Patrons do get access to a members-only channel in Discord, behind-the-scenes info. Secret stuff happens there that we cannot talk about. Patrons know. If you want to know, you got to be a patron. It's just how it works. You also get access to our legendary annual merch drop. There's your FOMO right there. Looking forward this fall to some really phenomenal art from Irresolute, our artist in residence at DMB. It's gonna, if you're a Star Wars fan or a Destiny fan, there's gonna be some sick art dropping very soon. All right, next up, thank you to everyone who's ever left the show a review. We have I think we actually have got almost as many reviews as we can hope for this year. Prove me wrong, but we have hundreds of 5-star reviews, and it feels really good to know that it's made a difference. I do want to say ratings are great. If you can leave a review, reviews are better. Reviews let people know that the show's worth hearing. And reviews are a great way to get a shout out on the show. In the past, I've been reading those full reviews out. I don't know if that's something that we'll continue doing on PvE. They just shout out the reviewers by name. That might be the path to go in the future, but it's still a shout out, and we still appreciate it. Finally, and these are some folks who do not get credit in public very often, but you may see their names in the episode notes or the episode description on YouTube. And I want to extend a very special thank you to the Destiny Massive Breakdowns editors. These two folks do loads of work behind the scenes, and the show sounds great because of them. So, if you appreciate the noise in your ears right now, if it is pleasant to listen to, these folks deserve your thanks. So I'd like to say thank you to Nettie Smith, who's the primary editor for this show, Destiny Massive Breakdowns, and thank you to Mr. Sutton, who is the primary editor, Podcast versus Enemies, and also the person who taught me that I don't have to sound like garbage if I just correct my settings.
He did the same for me, by the way.
Dude's a champ.
He is.
So big thank you to them. And that brings us to the end of the thank yous, except that I also wanted to say thank you to you, dear listener, for hanging out for all this time. It's been awesome. And who knows? Perhaps one day we can do it again. If you like Star Wars, we can do it again this week because Beneath Twin Suns is back talking to Andor. We waited until we watched the entire show, not on purpose, but that's what happens. It's an occasional Star Wars show, and Andor is phenomenal. It's possibly
quick question. You're about to say you might be about to say it. So I just saw a promo on television for it, and they, one of the reviewers, I guess, said that it was the best Star Wars show, like series, ever. I can't remember whether it said live action because I just can't imagine anything eclipsing Clone Wars, by the way. But what are your thoughts on that briefly?
Oh, briefly. Oh, what? Because I could do a whole podcast.
I know. Oh,
and he does. You should go listen to it.
And I do.
Week.
And I do. Yeah. And you should join me and Mercules hanging out, talking about non-Destiny stuff. But it's tough for me to compare those two shows because they're good for different reasons. Andor is aimed more at adults, people who loved Star Wars as kids 20, 30 years ago, still appreciate Star Wars, but want something more serious in the mix. My opinion of Andor is that it might be the best show I've watched this year. Full stop.
Wow. Okay.
I off the top of my head, I don't know what I would compare it to that came out this year. That would be comparably good. I could probably come up with a few things given time to go look at my watch history, but it's really good. It's really, really good. Okay, well, if you want to hear more about that, you're going to have to tune in to Beneath Twin Suns. I appreciate the layup there.
It's a teaser.
Yeah. So let's talk about Destiny, though. That's what I asked you here for. If you guys make this a Star Wars show, I won't be mad.
That'd be crazy, actually, if we just low key started sneaking in Star Wars just to compete with Between Two Suns.
Oh my gosh,
that would be insane. That'd be crazy plot.
Just slowly a little more Star Wars every week.
Exactly, and then you could tell that we were listening to Between Two Suns every week. And you guys had an opinion, but then we snuck in and we're like, well, I don't know where I necessarily heard this, but I'm going to go ahead and disagree and say that Andor is not the best show, full stop, this year.
Oh, my gosh. I'm going to be listening and you're going to be like, I thought the Holdo maneuver was great. And I'm just going to break my phone. So, all right.
Wow.
Well, if you do that, I'll know. Where were we? The Crucible. The Crucible. He's
second guessing having us as host, y'all. He's like, wait.
You see it on his face.
This is how I know I made the right choice, actually. If you guys didn't make me question that choice, then I would almost be more concerned. So we've got a bunch of stuff, and I in the spirit of passing the baton, I want you guys to kind of take the lead here. So I'm just going to kind of sum up, and we'll see where the conversation takes us here. But we got a massive TWAB from Bungie on the 17th of November, 2022. For anyone who's listening to this episode in the far future, hello from the past. All about what the Crucible is going to be like in season 19, which is starting pretty soon. Just a few days after this episode drops, and also a little further in the future. But it's the season 19 stuff that I think is most interesting right now, obviously. I did a bit of a speed run through this two weeks ago, just kind of giving my first impressions, not really digging in too deep. And so what I wanted to do today is take a second look at this right before it all comes live, right before we truly have a chance to actually get our hands messy and talk about it, make some predictions, because truly the spirit of Massive Breakdowns is making predictions and then waiting to find out how right or wrong they are. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. And I think the big topics that jumped out at me is there are going to be there already are some strong opinions one way or the other. Competitive division. Yeah. It's kind of a huge topic. There's so much packed into that. It's a lot of change, a lot of new stuff. A lot of stuff where it might be new, it might be familiar, it's hard to say. They're clearly trying to do something different in the Crucible with it. And so I want to get into that. And the other thing that's happening that I thought was really worth taking a look at is the new playlist structure for the Crucible screen. And I've always been a huge proponent of less playlists equals better experience. And so I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on that front. Let's take it away.
Okay, we start with that. I do agree that kind of a laser focus on the playlists that get more play, playlists that maybe make a little bit more sense as well to have around 24/7, and then have others on a rotator. I do agree with that, especially with population, whether it goes up or down. I like kind of tailoring that towards times where, I don't want Bungie to have to, micromanage that, basically. Oh, okay, well, this is the lull part of the season. It's very normal. It's right before, another big season or something like that. Or maybe it's the tail end of, or the second half of a very long season. And, pop is down a little bit. People are taking breaks, which is completely reasonable. Now we need to reduce the playlist down a little bit so that I don't want them to have to micromanage that, basically. And so I do agree with kind of tailoring the number of playlists and which playlists are active 24/7 towards kind of just making sure that the playlists that are active are well populated, especially with skill-based matchmaking, fire team matchmaking, likely going to be disseminated to other playlists in the near future, right? So a thick population in those playlists will help that skill-based matchmaking algorithm to truly do what it's supposed to do and further the goals that they've defined for it.
Yeah, and then to see those pools even further, because this kind of goes into it as well, but having that fire team-based matchmaking coming later on down the line to even consolidate those playlists even further, that's going to be awesome to see, to just have even fewer buttons to click on and have a lot of players that play solo and aren't as familiar with Crucible, they just click on the big icon and don't even pay attention to the smaller one. I can't tell you how many times, even in trials this weekend, I saw the solo jump into the main one, and you're like, and you can tell they're not sure what they're doing there, and you're like, I'm so sorry what's about to happen to you, but this is just the way that it is because you clicked on this button. But I agree. I'm excited to see some of the low population playlists consolidated. I can't tell you how many times my name was mentioned on podcasts this week when they saw that Rumble was going away, and they were like, oh, how does Lego feel about this? And I was like, I am actually whatever is best for the population, I'm all for it. Yeah, that sucks that I'm not going to have that test zone basically for me, not even as a content creator, but even before I was doing any YouTube. It was just the place that I went to see, is this weapon worth using? Can I win a 1v1 with it? And then what does it feel like after that? And now that's kind of gone unless you're private lobbying in some way. I could go into Crucible Labs maybe, or competitive, I think will end up being the new testing ground for that, but you don't really want to mess up your rank either. So Rumble is a really nice place for that, aside from just loving Rumble. But I am okay sacrificing for the greater good, whatever gets the most people playing and the best lobbies, I'm for that. So
100%.
I'm not crying about anything. I am completely cool with whatever they decide to do, especially after seeing the values they listed for Rumble and Showdown being the lowest of the low. I was like, wow, nobody's playing Rumble right now. That's crazy.
I got to be honest. I was a little curious how you felt about it as well. And I liked Rumble as a mode, but I can't say that I played it that often. And in part, I've played it less and less over time because it's felt like the population has been so low that matches have been less fun because they've been a bit laggy.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot from people.
So it's I hear the pain that people have, and I also am but it's really not good for the game to have it there.
Yeah,
I have to say, they show kind of a shot of what the new Crucible director might look like. Obviously, probably not subject to change at this point, but who knows if this is the final version. But I like it. I like that we've got competitive right there, central. And I like that because it's saying, hey, new person, come here, play against other new people or people who just aren't great at Crucible. And that makes a lot of sense to me. And then we'll have quick play off to the right, labs off to the left, other stuff kind of below that. It feels like it makes a lot more sense, and it's not quite as overpowering as the current setup is, where it's just like control and then, oh yeah, there's other stuff too. Huh.
Yeah,
it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, especially for somebody that isn't familiar with the Crucible, right? What I like about this is two things. One is that with the advent of with Fireteam-based matchmaking, right? The freelance nodes for competitive and Iron Banner are eventually gonna go away, right? Mm-hmm. They're eventually gonna go away. So we're only going to have. Yep, Traveler willing, true. So Traveler willing, we're only going to have those 5 nodes, which will be even cleaner. That's one. 2, you said it right, and that's something that I hadn't thought about actually, was the fact that competitive, if they keep this model right here, competitive is going to be front and center. Why that matters is because if somebody's coming into the game just fresh, competitive will actually be the place that is the most heavily, quote unquote, skill-based matched. Right. Mm-hmm. So they're going to find people around. It's going to be the tightest. They're going to find people around their skill level in competitive more likely than anywhere else. You've got Crucible Labs, which will be connection based. You've got Iron Banner / Quick Play. Obviously, Iron Banner being there when Quick Play is not. They're going to replace, Quick Play or Control with Iron Banner whenever Iron Banner is present. And that is going to, and they even said Iron Banner is going to now have loose skill based matchmaking, right? Rumble, connection-based matchmaking in the bottom left, and then private matches, private matches. But the point is, competitive is going to have some form of skill-based matchmaking, but it's also parallel to that. I hope I could say parallel. I mean, it's not. I'm not a dev, so I don't know if it's actually parallel, but just loosely, let me just say it. Parallel to that, it's also going to have ranks, right? So, people aren't going to be able to match. It's not going to be very likely that they're going to match outside their rank. And then on top of that, there's going to be some degree of skill-based matchmaking to ensure that they're playing people around their skill level, irrelevant of rank as well. Well, probably not irrelevant, but you see my point, largely irrelevant of rank.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's really cool. And as someone who has been a big proponent of just folks jumping into the Crucible and whether they play casually or not, being loosely incentivized just to improve at the game. I mean, it's intrinsically a competitive environment, player versus player. And so just playing the game and being passively incentivized to just get a little bit better, to think a little bit more with intention about maybe I should have made this play. If there is a goal in mind for them, such as winning the game or something along that line, to maybe make a different decision next time that might have a different outcome that may end up fulfilling that goal a little bit more completely. So competitive being the place for that is cool. It's cool to see it there.
That's so cool. I'm so glad you guys both brought that up. It wasn't something that really crossed my mind, the placement of it, but looking at the image, I'm like, man, that's going to be so awesome for people jumping into the Crucible, either for the first time or just if they haven't in a while and the sandbox has changed so much and it's like right there in their face, like, hey, try this out, see where you're at, see what it's like playing against other people that are in your skill bracket. That's going to be really cool. And on top of that, we talked about consolidating the playlist. Iron Banner replacing Quick Play when it comes up is going to be so nice as just lesser things to choose from. Where are your friends at? What are they playing? Mm-hmm. Even in that sense of the game, that's going to be so nice.
And that just makes more sense too. Remember, right now when Iron Banner is out, Trials isn't out. It's right. Not as much of a 1-to-1 as Control, 6v6, 6v6, right? 6v6 Control, 6v6 Iron Banner. It just makes more sense that Iron Banner would replace Control,
right?
Versus Trials of Osiris. And I've seen that feedback quite often. The fact that folks, a lot of folks, especially folks that truly enjoy Trials, even now, truly enjoy Trials, enjoy it to be here or would like it to be here even when Iron Banner is here. So I thought that was a very reasonable change on their part.
Yeah. I will say on the non-serious side of all of this, Kit, I agree with you. Rumble should come back 12 player when it comes back in rotation. Just make it ridiculous. Because whenever originally when Rumble came out, it was 8 player Rumble. And I loved the heck out of the chaotic nature of every second you were in an engagement. You finished one guy, a guy was spawning like just down the road. And so it was just constant fighting. And it was so much fun. And then they took it back down and they were like, well, if you want that kind of Rumble, you got to go play private matches. But it's like, that's like getting more people than a raid to get together, and like how hard is that? You know, sometimes depending on what discords you're in. But I would love to see them kick up Rumble or do something, because Rumble has continually, I promise y'all, this is the last time I'm going to talk about Rumble. I had to though, since it's going away to weekly rotation. But it's like kind of continually the experience kind of gone downhill. You talked about the lag because not as many people are playing it, and then when you do play, you got maps like Disjunction coming in, and then people are quitting out of it, and then you're left with 3 people in a Rumble match in Disjunction, and you're like, I'm not gonna quit, but at the same time, at least I'm the bang my head against the wall kind of guy, and so I'm gonna keep playing it until the end. But I'm playing it with 3 other guys, and it goes to time, and it's just like, come on, I just wanted to. And so we started with the opposite experience of that 8-player Rumble, complete chaos, down to 3-player Rumble. Disjunction is where we're at now. And so I'm ready for that playlist to be packed. I don't care what it looks like. I just want to have a packed free-for-all playlist. I can't wait.
Well, rest assured, I will be taking that feedback with me. And I look forward to finding out all the reasons why it's wrong or why it won't work. But Bungie's not afraid of a chaotic mode, right? You know, we've got momentum control, mayhem, team scorched. Like the rotator's already packed with chaos.
Yeah. I think that they were trying to find some degree of a middle ground with it. Yeah. I mean, obviously they were testing some things out when they, like Destiny 2 first dropped. True. With regards to 4v4, just quick play control sort of thing. My thing about 8 versus 6 with Rumble is it doesn't necessarily even come from the I like more mayhem, I like more chaos type of angle. Rumble, for me personally, is kind of one-dimensional in the sense of what am I doing whenever I go into Rumble and I want to win Rumble? I'm going in, I'm just farming spawns. That's what I'm doing. Right. I know exactly when somebody's spawning and where, 95% of the time. And so therefore, I am just sectioning myself off on the most cozy part of the map, or maybe the half of the map that I spawned in on. And then I'm literally just picking somebody off and immediately rotating to their spawn to get them again, or to get somebody else that spawned there, and then just keep on doing that in the 2 or 3 different spawns in that area. My point being that with 8 people, it's less likely that that's going to happen. Yep. I feel like things are more dynamic.
Yeah,
you're going to have engagements in areas that, I mean, right now you're just having engagements in spawns if you're, running that lobby for the most part. And you're right, you finish off somebody and immediately you have to take some cover maybe that you generally, didn't take the last time. And you have to come back out and you have to finish off that engagement. And then it just goes over. It's that high octane pace of play.
It's more improv.
Variety. It's the variety of the engagements. Exactly. It's that improv. And so that's what made D1 Rumble with 8 people more engaging for me, at least, versus D2's version.
So I want to ask you guys' this take actually on a semi-related topic here, but one thing that's jumped out at me since I first read this TWAB, like on maybe the third, I think it was the third time I was looking through it that I finally caught this. But how do you feel about season 19? Being full on the season of Rift?
Oh yeah, it is a lot of Rift.
It's in basically every playlist, right? It's in the weekly rotator list. It's in the competitive division. It's in labs. I mean, obviously it's in private matches. That was a bit of a freebie, but I'm going to take it and say that it's everywhere except quick play. That's a lot of Rift. Now, I like Rift as a game mode. I think it's a great team-based game mode, but it's a lot of Rift. And is it Mercury's fault? I don't know, but
does Merc like Rift?
He does. He loves Rift.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna have some words from Merc.
I mean, he's not in the activities team at all.
No, I know.
So
I'm just messing.
I just for anybody listening, I want to be clear. As far as I know, he works on weapons, so I don't think this is his fault.
Yeah, of course.
But also, I'm gonna blame him. Yes.
Yeah. Personally, for me, I'm not the biggest fan of Rift. When Rift first came out in, the form that it currently exists, I would say I was probably a little too harsh, on Twitter about it. I was like, man, you guys just need to switch it back to control, man. Just switch it back to control. This ain't even fun, Since then, I acknowledge that was probably a little bit too harsh of criticism. A lot of my friends, a lot of my community and clanmates enjoy Rift. Do I necessarily think that it deserves kind of a central attention in Destiny PvP? I not in Destiny 2. I don't think it suits it quite so firmly, but I do think as far as like an addition and something different, switch things up, substantially different feel from the rest of the Crucible, I think it's cool. And what I will say is I was reluctant first when I saw that Rift was going to be in competitive. While I agree, and so we can segue a little bit, while I agree that Supremacy, Countdown, those modes right there would more straightforward fit the competitive playlist versus Rift. I am interested to see how it's going to play in 3v3. I am actually interested to see how it's going to play in 3v3 because when it released for Iron Banner, I think most of us can agree it seemed more like a competitive mode than a control or quick play mode. Yeah. So I'm interested, and it depends on the maps as well, map selection. But after playing it, this is the final note that I'll say for Rift, personally for me. After playing it more in private matches with my community, I enjoy it a little bit more. I still don't enjoy it as much as, like the other areas of the Crucible. I still won't necessarily go and seek it out. But it's nice to mix things up.
For me, I'm like, I'm thinking about my experience with Rift, and I have to say I effing love Rift. And it's funny because I didn't really in D1. Like, it was fine. It was just like, oh, this is a different thing you can do. There's something about it in D2. Like, I'll say, like, first off, I don't like the transitions between rounds and like how long it takes.
That's my biggest.
It really slows it down. But if you like cut that out or like figured out a way to make that faster and it just like instantly like resets. Man, I think it's a really great mode because it's so tense when you get those games where it's like a 4, you're tied and the next round wins, or if it's coming to time and y'all are tied, like those games are just so much fun. Even if I was just solo queuing in Iron Banner, it was so much fun when it first debuted. Even with the glitches and stuff, I still had a ton of fun in it. And so I agree with you, like it felt more competitive, but I liked that environment in a like just a pickup game style environment where it was just like, we'll just see what happens. And it ended up being really stressful or it ended up being really chill. I like that variety. And so I can see how they transition it into competitive because it's going to be really interesting to see how it switches up people's loadouts and playstyles from something like survival that they know really well.
That's a great point.
And Rift is going to be just a completely different set of skills sometimes. So I'm curious to see how that goes down. It also kind of fits with Showdown. Because someone correct me if I'm wrong, I like hardly ever play Showdown, but I'm pretty sure that's the one with the revives where you can get lives back. And so Rift also has revives, and so it kind of has a similar theme to it. Survival doesn't really have either of those, and so it's kind of cool that we're going to take these different ways to play the game into comp. But as far as just Rift, if I just stick with Rift for a second, I just love what they did with it. I don't know how it became something that I love so much more than D1, but pretty much every time I play, I'm like having fun. I'm also someone that doesn't take losses super hard. So if I just get smacked down by a team and had no chance, I'm like, well, that team was just, they were set up as a team, or they just had players that knew how to run Rift, and that's cool. I'll try again next game. But I really enjoy those close, tight games with Rift. I am surprised, Kutch, with how many playlists this is in. I did not realize it was in the weekly rotator, and I'm kind of confused as to why it's in labs, but also in 3v3 competitive. Like, I get because it's asymmetrical maps, I guess, but that's a lot of playlists to have Rift, and I am skeptical of that.
Yeah. I would have liked to see something else in its place in the rotator, just so that like there's not a week where it's 3 modes of Rift. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mine are great.
And hopefully they'll implement, or they'll bring in a few other different play modes in the future, even if bringing back, I'll say it again, Countdown, Supremacy, Showdown. I will say Showdown was a great addition for competitive. I've been talking about it, and not just me. This is not just a unique idea. The fact that Showdown needs a little bit more love. A lot of people really, really enjoy it, and it can be like a competitive. One of the competitive modes that Destiny Bungie can continue to iterate upon to make better. It's different and it's dynamic in my opinion. So yeah, I do have a question. What was the question? Oh, the question I had for Lego was, as far as Rift, do you like it more versus D1? Because instead of trying to find a middle ground between what Rift is, as an objective mode, first and foremost, and a Slayer mode.
Right.
D1's Rift was more of a middle ground between those two, right?
Yeah.
Instead, in D2, they've fully just doubled down on Rift as an objective mode. And it sounds like maybe you like that more, and I do like the idea of what you said. People have to shift. They have to shift modes, maybe some builds, maybe some play styles,
exactly,
in order to kind of adapt to a completely, in a lot of ways, a completely different environment versus a Slayer mode. So is that what it is?
I do think that is a lot to do with it. I do think that pushes it, because when you see those numbers just being 2 versus 2 versus like what was the old D1 Rift score? It was like 1324 versus 50. Yeah. It was some number that like hardly meant anything when you looked at it. So when you look up at the top and there's 1 minute left on the clock and it's 2v2, you're like, let's go, like let's get this win, and so that's the kind of stuff that I love, and I'm curious to see how it translates to competitive, like you were saying. And on top of that, I just want to add that we're gonna probably see some ugly stuff come out of this out the gate, because what the different types of playstyles will do is highlight things in Destiny 2 that aren't as highlighted in the sandbox now, in the 3v3 environment in particular. So things like you see in zone control trials, where bubble titans are really strong, barricades are really strong, those things that set up and plant down and are fast to do so. You're going to see stuff like that. Maybe it'll be stasis dust-filled grenades next season, maybe they'll be stronger, and so people will be controlling the zone and holding down reses. Maybe weapons with headstone are going to be really important, so they can't get the res because those reses are going to be so important in Rift. So stuff like that is going to be really interesting to see what comes to the top, and I think that's interesting. I know within the first 2 weeks in the competitive playlist, there's going to be some stuff that rises to the top that gets really annoying really fast, but I'm excited to see what those things are and find the underdogs and see what kind of develops within the community. It's honestly one of the most exciting parts of the game to me.
I like it.
So one other thing I noticed, and then we can maybe talk a little bit more about competitive division specifically, but I was looking at the selection of modes for competitive, and I thought they made some good choices in terms of kind of the division of the types of modes we have. Where survival is kind of a more paced Slayer mode, and Showdown is also a Slayer mode with revives, and then Rift is not a Slayer mode, but it has revives, and so there's kind of this. Like, we've got 2 modes with revives, 1 without. We've got 2 Slayer modes, 1 that's not a Slayer mode. And so there's no perfect team composition for all 3 modes. And so you're always having to kind of decide, which modes does my team need to be the best at, and where can we take a chance on being weaker?
Yeah.
Because swapping stuff while you're loading in is always like risky. I feel like trying to get everything to swap over, and maybe people with gigabit internet don't have that challenge, but trying to swap stuff when I'm loading into a match, because suddenly I'm playing disjunction and I've been running sidearm shotgun, and I'm like, oh, this is not going to be fun. I end up swapping them, and then my mods are all wrong, and it's just a subpar match. So,
well, this is a really good point, because what you can't swap? Characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So specifically speaking, I think we can all kind of like see where I'm going with regards to Titan. If you don't have a Titan, You won't be able to play if you're taking survival, if you're taking competitive, rank competitive, competitive division. Now they're calling it. Seriously, you got to have a Titan. There's no way you go in, trying to advance ranks, consistently winning every game without a Titan, with a barricade, with a bubble potentially as well. So, what those three very different, or at the very least, I guess Showdown's kind of a middle ground, right? Play modes is going to just require folks to think of this stuff ahead of time, and ensure that we don't have there's not going to be three stompy hunters running survival.
Oh, boy, I'm so sad to hear that.
I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening.
I was thinking that about Rift because I forget in 6v6 it's not as big of a deal, but somebody grabs the Rift, you only have so long before it explodes on you, kind of like the other Iron Banner mode. And so if it's only 3 people and where that other person is on the map, they're like marked because one of your teammates saw them. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out defensively. Even if you are 3 hunters, that's a difficult play to make against Titans with barricades. That's just going to be difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, with 2 out of the 3 modes having having revives, it's just yeah. So that'll be interesting to see how that ends up playing out with regards to just diversity of team comp. Diversity of team comp, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It's the same thing that I was talking about a while back when I hadn't seen it. I'm going to go ahead and just blow myself up for a second. I hadn't seen that piece of feedback at the time, but way back when I suggested, hey, Bubble and Well are just way too predominant in trials. But what you can do, instead of nerfing those per se, what you could do is you can bring up another neutralizer super up to, tier 4, similar to Blade Barrage. Blade Barrage, if you're on Blade Barrage and you're getting into engagements, you get your Blade Barrage just about the same time that they get their Bubble or their Well in order to take that out. And I'm a testament to that because that's what I run in order to combat that. You bring up Chaos Reach to tier 4.
That's what I was thinking.
That's gonna then then you end up just changing the equation without having to touch anything else. You bring up a class that most people aren't using anyway, a super that most people aren't using anyway, bring it up to tier 4, that's going to change the equation. It basically becomes a nuclear deterrent. So my point is to bring that back, is that just by introducing these particular play modes, it may end up, and the fact that you can't change your character before you see that it's Rift or it's Showdown or whatever else, it's going to influence that team comp, and therefore, hopefully we'll see some additional team comp diversity, from these teams going into ranked.
I'm curious to see how many teams try to back out of Rift matches as well. But I feel like competitive division could have a quitter's penalty, and that would be fair.
Well, it does.
It does. Okay. Yeah. Maybe I missed that.
It does. Yep.
Let's
talk
about it.
At least the current one does. Yeah.
There's no way that, look, people, quick play got a quitter's penalty. Ain't no way competitive division launches without a quitter's penalty. This is not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the competitive division here, because there's a ton of stuff coming in here. Does one of you want to kind of take the rundown?
Well,
oh boy, go ahead, Lego.
I was just gonna say, because you kind of said all the information last week, so I don't want to regurgitate anything, but I did want to, I guess, hit on maybe their goals for it, because I feel like that's almost better than the actual, like, hey, here's the, it's going to be based on your skill, it's going to have these ladders, but their goals for it kind of almost says more than the specifics, because we don't know all the specifics. People tend to like fill in the blank online, and me and Kutch were kind of talking about this before the show, and it's gotten a lot of people worried about what, and even me to a degree when I first read it, what the ranking system is going to be like. But then Mercules comes out on Twitter and he says, as many people on the show are familiar with him, I honestly hope y'all enjoy the comp rework. A lot of people work very hard on it. As far as the feedback goes, it's heard. Give it a shot. Say what you like and don't like once you played it. Let's go from there. We'll be playing right alongside you. I guarantee it. And that, honestly, it kind of got me like, okay, like I know that he gets what we're all wanting this to be. And if he's like, hey, just try it out, see what you think. A lot of people worked hard on it. I'm like, I want to try it out and see what I think. Because if I grinded a Rumble playlist with just an elo number like as my only motivating factor, like I'm definitely gonna grind this out just to see like how high I can get. That's gonna be so much fun. In the team composition, we already talked about the game types changing things up so much. It's just gonna be a different place to play Destiny than we used to have, because part of my mind goes back to the way competitive used to be when it was 4v4, but we're an entirely different version of the game now. That was all, at least most of my experience with it was all just primary weapons only, and weapons we have now in special or were heavy back then. So it just feels like an entirely different game. But I'm just gonna read the competitive division, their goals for it real quick, and then maybe we can jump in and talk about their ladder system that they have in mind for it. Their goals for competitive division: all players can find a variety of balance matches and feel competitive. A player's PvP division is a core part of their Guardian identity. Maintain places in the ecosystem to not engage in ranked play but still have decently balanced matches, or to not engage in skill-based matchmaking at all. And so all of this together, like just him saying all that, reading the TWAB again through all this, it has me really hyped to see how this all plays out, what division they fall into, the way that they've gone in to talk about when you move between ranks, there's this in-between period where you play, I believe it was 3 games to move up or down, depending on how you win or lose. And it just seems very focused on the ladder system, whereas I kind of got pinned down when I first read through this TWAB on it still being skill-based matchmaking. And I'm so sick of the skill-based matchmaking in the current competitive, where I just feel like I'm playing the same people and not really moving up or down. This seems very ladder focused, and there's an emphasis on moving in between ranks and showing off that if you made it to the top, you went through something to get there, and not just you grinded through something, but you are worthy of that title, which says a lot.
Man. Okay, bangers. Yo, Lego had all bangers. Just an FYI, man. He made me feel something with that. I love it. I'm trying not to curse, man. I am so excited.
You get one. We're PG-13.
Are we PG-13? I am so goddamn excited, man. I swear, I am so excited. 2 things. I love that Merc just came on and just remind everybody to keep perspective. Something that I try to do myself. I don't always succeed in. We get so narrow focused on our corners of the Crucible, our play styles, that we kind of forget about the wider play styles, the wider player base. We just forget about just letting things sit for a second. I've said it many times, and I think that the way that that changes are being made now, more frequently, smaller incremental changes more frequently, and then see how it ends up playing out. I completely agree with that mindset, basically. And Bungie is increasingly, doubling down on that. We saw that with the LFR changes, with the rents is a really good example of that. Like, I'll make a quick analogy. So Lorentz, when the most recent patch came out for Lorentz, there was so much backlash on Twitter about it.
Right, yeah.
Where it was just like, man, it didn't work.
It was crazy.
It didn't work. I've seen Lorentz 1 time in PvP. 1 time. Maybe 2. Walla said the same thing. He was just like, man, I haven't seen a Lorentz like all weekend. And that's what it's about. It's about, it's not like my expectation is to never see Lorentz again, but I just don't want to see it very often. And when I do, I just don't want it to be so unrewarding to play against. Just let things play out for a little bit and then give your feedback, But I think this whole like impulsiveness. And so the analogy that I'll make is towards skill-based matchmaking with competitive. People were like, man, there's still skill-based matchmaking competitive. There's still skill-based matching. Me, coming from like a science background, coming from a little bit of programming and that sort, I saw the description of the skill-based matchmaking in competitive division, and it read like an algorithm to me. And I'm just like, this is way more detailed. This is way more complicated than, there's skill-based matchmaking and there's ranked.
Right.
How they are implementing individual skill in the matchmaking selection process, it's interesting. It's interesting, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't think it's as simple as, oh, man, there's loose skill-based matchmaking in comp along with the ranked. And, man, anybody that's, a 0.75 is going to reach Ascendant because they're only playing against other 0.75s. That does not track with, the description that they've laid out in the TWAB. And so I didn't have that same, reaction to it. So, yeah. I'm super excited. There's definitely some things, and we'll continue to dig into here with regards to it that maybe I have some other concerns on. But in general, I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I wanted to say, and I don't know, I don't remember now how much I talked about this on kind of the first impressions take. I think I kind of glossed through it a little bit, but here's what they say, right, about your division rating being adjusted. This is what impacts it. Match outcome, win or lose. Now, that's pretty standard for a ladder system. In a lot of one single player competitive games, I've played a lot of Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering Arena in the past. Single player games, ladder systems, win or lose is all that matters. Obviously, that doesn't work for Destiny.
Yep.
In a 3v3, if it was win or lose, people would be gaming their friends to Ascendant
right,
just for kicks. So that obviously you can't use that system. Division, inflation, deflation, which this is where I hear what you're saying, Tony, and there's clearly some complicated math happening in the background right here. How far above or below your division is compared to your skill. So if you come in, and Bungie's talked about, their proprietary skill system before, and within 10 matches, they more or less know how good you are at PvP. And you can try to game that by throwing matches or playing with off-meta weapons or whatever. But play enough matches and they're going to figure you out.
100%.
And so if you belong at Ascendant, they're going to know that you belong up there. And if you don't, guess what? This division inflation deflation variable, it's going to say, hey, you had a 0.0 in the last 10 games. Sure, you just won the last 10 games, but you're getting 1 point each. So good luck with that climb. Have fun.
Yep.
We'll see you in 50,000 matches. And then on top of that, match performance. What I just said, how well you performed, 0.0. Do you belong in the division that you're in? Do you belong in a higher or a lower division? That's going to impact that rating being adjusted. Good players are going to get pushed up. Bad players are going to get pushed down. And that's as it should be. And then at how your skill compares to everyone else in the match, the player to lobby skill delta. And so the delta, for folks who aren't familiar with that term, is essentially just the distance between your skill and the skill of other players. And whether they're using an average or actively comparing you to each individual player here, we can't know. Anybody's guess. Maybe they're doing both. It's hard to say, without being the people that programmed it. But there's clearly a lot going on. The skill and rank are clearly pretty closely intertwined here. And I would not worry about seeing a lot of people at high ranks who quote unquote don't belong there, who maybe just aren't individually skilled enough at the game to get there on their own. I wouldn't expect to see many people gaming the system in that way. And that's fine. That's the intent. There's never been a foolproof system.
Of course.
And people will, I'm sure, somehow figure out a way to manipulate it, but it feels like they're doing everything they can to make it tough to do that. So.
Yeah, I'm not personally someone who's played so many FPS ranked games to the point where I've seen the math behind how people rank up and things like this, but this seems extremely well thought out.
Yeah,
extremely well thought out. At the very least, this seems okay, well, competitive is the area where you can't get carried. They said it. They literally said, look, there are some people that are going to play that will literally never, it doesn't matter how hard they try, they will never reach Ascendant. They will never reach Ascendant. And it just seems okay, you can't get carried to Ascendant. It doesn't seem like that's going to be a thing. Now, if they're now making competitive division the ranked, and they're making trials the loot, because we've been talking about this for a while, right? The kind of clash, the grit, the banging up between the two concepts of is trials competitive,
right,
or is trials a loot grab? you know?
Yeah.
And how those two,
crisis.
the identity crisis, and how those two are at conflict with each other. And okay, well, dude, let's just make it a loot grab. I think that 7 wins, I've said it before, is antiquated, you know, at this point. Just make it a loot grab. Yes, you can be carried to it. Yes, you can be helped to it. It doesn't necessarily so much matter about your individual performance as long as you get those 7 wins. And, you know, let's just double down on that identity so that folks don't take it as seriously as, you know, a lot of folks do take it at this point, because we don't have that competitive environment so much. Now, let's double down on the competitive division to shuffle folks over to that area. And yeah, just have those two distinct identities between those two. So hopefully they're moving in that direction is all I'm trying to say, because obviously Trials has been having that identity crisis for a while, and that has not played out well for it, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point about like the individual anger of, you know, when you play something and put so much into this thing that maybe a player feels is the pinnacle PvP competitive experience is Trials, then a certain emotion comes out of that when you lose to so-and-so ability. And now it's kind of like redirected like into this. Not saying it's Bungie's not working on you know, balancing and changing all these things, as clearly there's so many things here, but funneling into like, this is the competitive, so much so, which we get to the rewards in a second, but there are no really rewards here other than something that everybody gets. It's not something you're earning for your rank. It's just to say, look at my rank, which obviously if I go to another website like Destiny Tracker and find, you know, some score that says like, okay, I am so and so in Rumble, you're going to see so many more players now that there's a rank in game to show you your skill level. So many people are going to want to grab that and show that off. And I'm wondering, I know that illPhysics and Kutch with Destiny Massive Breakdowns, and even the community the people that I surround myself with are all people who are striving to like get better at the game in individual ways. And I think that we're going to see an influx of more people like, I want to try to like actually improve, and not just like improve in one area of the game, but as a team, as we've seen, like there's different kinds of skills that are going to be required for Rift, for Showdown, for Survival, and we're going to see people want to improve at the game in general, and not just maybe just this one thing that gets them to Trials, but as a general, I want to improve as a player. And I'm excited. Like, that excites me to think of people wanting to grow again, because there's been a bit of a lull in some of the YouTube communities of people like, man, people just really like don't care about improvement videos in Destiny right now. And I think we might see that pick up a little bit more after this launches.
Yep. And I said it before, you know, I'll try to keep this part of it short because I've already mentioned it. The fact that, you know, folks will hop into competitive, hopefully just to try to play with, you know, people. It'll probably be the environment that will match you against folks that are the closest consistently against folks that are the closest to your skill level. And even if you're not actively going for improvement, you're passively just going to improve. You're passively going to improve. And so that, I feel like, helps Bungie's bottom line, because they've said it before. I mean, even if they haven't said it explicitly yet, because I can't remember if they said it, but the fact that the skill gap is so large in this game, right? Especially now that we're incorporating building and some stuff that isn't necessarily like explicitly player experience based, right? That, you know, folks need to be incentivized to at least passively improve, passively, you know, play with intention or build with intention to ensure that, you know, the player base isn't so wide that it's just really difficult to balance around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you guys think about two things. Like, one, the rewards, which we'll get to in a second. But even before that, the decay, the weekly decay, if you don't play versus if you do. I saw some differing opinions about that. And Physics, I was wondering how you felt about the decay coming into play, where like you had to be in the competitive playlist kind of weekly to keep your rank from decaying. I don't know how intense that decay is going to be, but I'm curious what y'all think of it.
I think there's a middle ground to be had with it, but I do like that idea. You know, what I love about the changes that Bungie has made, particularly in the past year with regards to the Crucible, you know, we'll talk about, or we could just say the Trials rework. We could talk about Eruption. They just double, triple, quadruple down on something. They want Eruption to succeed. They're going to release it with Arc 3.0, right? with a subclass that is specifically meant to be pushed, like to push people to move. Right. Eruption is the most dynamic PvP mode that we currently have. Introduced that with R 3.0. Trials rework, new everything, no flawless pool, nothing, just the fattest population pool, possible, and just let everybody just go in, and it's just card based, and we just see what happens with it. They just wanted that first weekend to be as successful as possible, but also just to have that strong baseline from which they can draw data and draw conclusions later down the road. Obviously for flawless pool as well. So the way that I see competitive division and like the decay is keep people playing. We want people to play this. We want this mode to be successful, and we want to have the data to draw on to ensure that we can make informed decisions down the road. Keep people playing. I think there's a middle ground to ensure that it's not, I think predatory is a little bit too strong of a word, but you see my point, to ensure that folks are taking breaks and things along that line, to the point that, video game addiction is real, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a middle ground, but if you're not playing the game, why do you care what your rank is? If you are consistently not playing the game, like, why should you be number one ascendant, for example? So come back and grind back to it if you want. It gives you a reason to come back and do it again. But yeah, I personally do not see a problem with it. In fact, I'm a proponent of it.
Cool. That was good to get your take. I was back and forth on it, but to hear those different points you just laid out, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm for this. Yeah, that's cool. Well,
yeah, I like Raid and Decay, and I like that they're talking about resetting rank every season.
Oh yeah.
That was one of my big. That was a big item on my detailed wish list for what a ladder system needs to look like to be successful here. Those seasonal, honestly, I wouldn't mind if they did monthly resets, but at least seasonal is fine with me. I know.
Take it easy, kid. I just talked about how I'm fucking addicted. Oh God. I just talked about how I'm addicted to this game.
One.
That was two. My bad. Edit it out. I apologize. But yeah, seasonal seems like a solid middle ground personally for me.
It does. It works. Yeah. I think it'll be the best for most people.
Yeah.
I don't need a reason to get addicted to playing the game. So any more than, I actually have been on you mentioned earlier taking breaks. I've been having
breaks are so good.
A nice little 2-week break, just playing Civilization 6 on deity hardness, trying to get. I don't know if you guys ever played Civilization, but it's for those who have. I'm playing on deity on apocalypse mode with zombie hordes, and it's wild. It's so much fun.
That sounds intense.
I don't think I'm gonna win, but it's a good time. So, anyways. It's really resetting my brain, and I'm super pumped. I wanted to do a hard mental reset before
the
this
new
week
season.
here.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good, man.
New season starting at Bungie. I was like, let's firmly unplug the brain from Destiny and go in super fresh. And I'm so hyped right now.
That's so good, man. That's such a good way to approach it.
But yeah, I like the way they're doing the ranks. I want to hear you guys' thoughts about rewards, because I had some people were like, oh, there are no rewards in this list. And I'm like, you do get weekly drops of rose. Now, fair concerns about whether or not hand cannons are in a spot where that's a reward that's worth getting every week. Tony, I'm curious your thoughts.
For us hand cannon people, it don't matter. I'm still going for it, because hand cannons are in a good enough spot, number one. Number two, it's likely that the sandbox is going to ease up on hand cannons a little bit. But for folks that really love hand cannons, man, as long as there are viable roles, which, I find difficult to believe that there aren't going to be viable, just meaning if you are an experienced or practiced hand cannon user, even if you aren't, and it's just like, hey, I pick up Rose and I want to get good at Rose. And if you invest that time into it, just a marginal amount of time, not crazy, then it should be something that is effective for your playstyle. Yeah. It should be viable. Therefore, dude, why not? I'm into it 100%. If it wasn't a hand cannon, honestly, I just wouldn't even be I don't care what state hand cannons are in. If it wasn't a hand cannon, I just wouldn't even be as excited about it. Period.
So I just want to say, and then I want to pass the mic off for a solid 10 minutes. But I was reading this description of Rose, and I was like, man, I am really looking forward to watching
I'm a pop.
illPhysics do the Ascendant
I'm a
grind
pop.
with like God Rolled Rose. Like this hand cannon, they sold it. Like this felt like a dating profile. It was like, yeah, I'd go out with you. Like, I'm married. Don't tell my wife. I was like, yeah, all right. You know, I've taken a little break from hand cannons, and I kind of am like, maybe it's time for that to be over.
You know what they said? They said the perks are going to be focused around consistency.
Yeah.
When they said that,
Love it.
Oh man, I already knew I was about to be in love. I was about to be in love because that's what you need. You have to hit, especially in this environment. Going up against a pulse rifle, you don't hit those 3 heads in range, you can call it. You can call it. Kit's already said it multiple times, and it's true. You know, 4 shots versus 3 is extremely punishing TTK wise, especially versus the TTK and the ease of use that we're seeing on other archetypes in the Crucible right now. So
I am curious, the hybrid part of this that it says fires like a 140 but allows you to move like a 150. Has this always been Rose's thing? I haven't used it much. Is it a lightweight in disguise?
This is something new, and it's ambiguous, right?
See, that's what it makes you think.
That's what everybody's thinking, is that it's going to be a 140 lightweight. It's going to be,
oh man,
would it be the only, there's no lightweight hand cannon left, right? Period.
No, there's not. Yeah. I don't think so.
So it may be
Just
the only one.
Sunshot. Yeah.
Which
Sunshot
doesn't have the
it
lightweight
doesn't have the lightweight intrinsic. Exactly. It's
Which
the
is
only
the
150,
one thing that I'm looking for. And if this operates like a lightweight, like it insinuates, I'm going to be a hand cannon main again. Like I love
a lot
hand
of people
cannons,
are,
but I can't go fast. I just want to go fast, and I'm not going to double up with an exotic that lets me get that lightweight speed, because I like stacking other stuff for those builds, but I'm often looking for lightweight weapons. And so if I can get a 140 hand cannon that operates like a lightweight, that's going to keep me wanting to get new rolls every week, regardless of whatever my rank is looking like.
Yep. And that, woo, you said it. And so many people are going to feel like that.
Yeah.
You know, so many people are going to go in. Like I said, double, triple. Bungie has been doing such a great job. Anytime they make changes to the Crucible, double, triple, quadrupling down to ensure that we have population, that mode is going to be the most successful that it can be. Now, you know, Rift, being Rift or whatnot, they obviously did something different, but either way, they doubled down on it by making sure that it was Iron Banner. So the folks were playing it for the Iron Banner rewards. But yeah, Rose is looking like a banger. It truly, truly is. Rose looking like a banger.
I got 2 other things to say about the rewards here. One like pro for me, and one kind of a con for me personally. And I'm curious to see where y'all fall on this. Pro for me is I love that Rose is you just play and you get it. That way there's this division. And I know this is one of the things that people were mad about online. At least some people were like, I want a reason to grind and get to these higher ranks to get this cool gun. There's no cool gun. I grinded the old comp to get this killer SMG or Not Forgotten or whatever. And I hated that system. I feel like getting a better weapon and then dumping on players who couldn't get the better weapon is kind of like, that feels bad. I just have a hard time understanding the logic of somebody who wants that to be the case. And so I really like this implementation of it, where it's just everybody's going to get this. The more you play, the more chances you have at getting a better one. It doesn't matter how you perform. You just get more chances of it. That's great. The con for me comes with there not being any cosmetic reward, because like you said, they like to double down on stuff, and this would be the time to double down on it. Maybe it's new enough and enough people will go for it that the playlists will be in. But given that there's a bad taste in people's mouths with the current state of comp, that is what worries me going into this, that there isn't any like, I want to get to this rank to get this reward, this cosmetic reward, like an emblem or whatever. Because in other games, like just take like Apex for example, like their rank, you get so far down the line, you get like a new jump in animation thing. There's just these random things that you get. They aren't, or a weapon skin or things like that. They're not things that affect your gameplay. It's just random other stuff, and other games do that as well. And so I would have liked to have seen, but I understand Crucible needed an update. It needed changes. We've been waiting so long. So I also understand the need to just get this out, because they mention at the very end of this whole comp thing in Lightfall future rewards update in the seasons post Lightfall, where we are expecting to get further cosmetic rewards for competitive division. So I get that it's coming. I just wish that it would have launched even just one thing, even just an Ascendant, or maybe not Ascendant, maybe that'd have been too much, but somewhere in the middle there, like gold or something, that whatever that tipping point they think it is. And maybe that's why they're waiting to see like where the populations fall, and then put the incentives accordingly to what is appropriate for the population. I don't know. I'm talking myself back out of it as I'm saying that it's a con for me. But that's initially, just looking at it, that is my feeling going into it.
No, I definitely, I agree with you in general. Like, if we're talking about tripling down on this new mode, why wouldn't we not have cosmetic incentives, especially since this is something that folks have been talking about for a long time? It's not as if this is a new piece of feedback, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'll play devil's advocate for a second, though, too. They may be putting it off a little bit, because think about the Destiny community. Think about eBay. Think about emblems. An emblem, a cosmetic. There's a crazy booming market for just emblems, like that people will pay good money for. So like, let's definitely not, this is not directed towards you, but just in general, let's not pretend that folks aren't going to be out there still trying to get that not forgotten money,
right?
For cosmetics. So my point is, maybe as devil's advocate, maybe they're just like kind of letting it sit and trying to get people hooked on the actual improvement cycle, trying to get people hooked on the ranks, ensuring that folks are seeing the intrinsic benefit of just grinding the playlist outside of rewards, cosmetic rewards, and including them later, to ensure that we don't have, folks that are grinding for an emblem and then selling that account, or, grinding for a cosmetic and then selling that account. So there may just be that buffer period. I mean, even if it just comes down to them just being, providing that buffer period that's maybe what's going on right there, because we will pay for it. We will pay for emblems. Apparently,
recovs are for sure a thing.
Still a thing. People take those risks.
And yeah, good moment to just remind folks that certainly paying for recovery is one way to circumvent the matchmaking system, and it's also a great way to get banned if that person happens to cheat while using your account.
Or if they get caught, because recovs are against TOS, period, right? So, or if they just get caught for it being a recov.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was something else that I wanted to add to this. Oh, and that was, I'm just going to devil's advocate myself again on top of yours, double down on it, because, talking about going all in on something, that we're trying out stuff that has never been done before, and that is having Showdown and Rift in this competitive environment, and they might want to save. We're not sure, like I was talking about earlier, we're not sure what's going to rise to the top, what's going to get annoying real fast. What if it's like, this is good, like I like the system, but I hate the gameplay right now. They need to correct a few things once the full population gets a hold of it. And if they're saving like any cosmetic reward, like they didn't put anything, no cosmetic rewards in at all. So when they do, people are going to be on it for those cosmetic rewards, because this is Destiny. And so we're going to have Strand come out in Lightfall, and then post Lightfall, all the news gone and they need to push something else. They throw a bunch of cosmetics into competitive, and they've got it kind of tighten down what they want competitive to look like, and all the bolts are in place, and then it feels smooth. Teams know what to expect from other teams who have been in there, and then the general population who is afraid of Crucible wants to jump in because they want that shader or that emblem or whatever it is that they throw in there. They would get that population booming. I think that could be a really cool thing to see. So I can see how down the road it can make sense to hold on to that thing, because if you put one of those things in right now, it would kind of throw off tons of people who would jump in to try and get that thing potentially, and maybe they didn't have a good time and then they never touch it again. Whereas if you save it, even if they did jump in now, they might try it again later. Yeah. So it's interesting thinking back and forth on it.
Yeah, people that jump in now and stick with it are genuinely, outside of the rows, obviously, are genuinely going to enjoy the playlist.
Yeah.
And so then you just add rewards later on, on top of that should, as it should be, should be, icing on the cake as opposed to, the actual cake.
So we've got just a little bit more time here before we want to move to wrap up. Some quick hits on some topics. Maps. Bungie's hiring apparently for map designers, which I feel like is basically their way of saying like, hey, we'd love to do more maps. We need some more folks to come help us do more maps. That's how it reads to me. I don't know.
No, it's how it reads to me.
I talk about. I've told people I'm starting working there. I haven't started at the time of this recording. I don't know anything. I'm not speaking for the company, but they say right there we're hiring. So I'm like, okay, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, we need good. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
Good on both fronts. Good.
Yeah.
Good on Bungie's end and just good in general. So map people, get out there. Forge people, all you Halo Forge kids, just go work for Bungie. Like, just stop. Just go work for Bungie. Please
get paid.
I do want to say, like, despite I know there's a huge push for new maps right now, but we were talking about the different game modes earlier. Like, we were talking about Rift, and then Physics. You brought up the new Iron Banner game mode where it forces you to like get ignited, like go on a crazy spree or else you explode. And then Cut, you mentioned last episode momentum control being in that playlist. Like all the like newer game modes that they've made for me, and it might be one of the reasons that I liked Rift too, just being something different and having that competitive vibe when you get in a 2v2 or 2 versus 2-point situation and timers going down. All these new modes get me amped. Like I like all of them a lot, and I know not everybody does, but I feel like they're really killing it in the modes that have come out recently, and so I'm excited for maps to follow suit alongside of that, because I do feel like they've been really killing it with the modes, and I'm curious to see Lightfall and post Lightfall what they come up with there to go along with I feel like they're going to keep pushing the modes further and further, and if they bring maps alongside of that, it's just a really exciting time to be a Destiny Crucible fan.
Yes.
Not just because of the Crucible rework, but also just everything they've been doing lately, even weapons and perks and perk combinations we've never seen before, and now soon new maps and soon new modes and new playlists and higher populations. It's really exciting.
The writing's been on the wall for this. It's the reason why, and I've been talking about the fact that I've been, I'm cautiously optimistic. I mean, a couple things. First, I can't remember who said it. Maybe it was Blackburn. I can't remember. They said that the strongest push with regards to, the core playlist, but specifically PvP, will come closer to Lightfall, right? It'll come closer to Lightfall. I remember something along that line with that tweet. But you could just, slowly but surely see the push in all of these individual areas that will hopefully bring us to a nice place, an evolution of the PvP, playlist. So yeah.
Pumped.
Optimistic. I'm pumped. Most definitely. And just keep giving that constructive feedback, that respectful. Keep it respectful. Keep it constructive. I understand, and I've been there where you air your frustrations as well. Keep that in minimal amounts, and just make sure that you're also mentioning the stuff that you love and that you feel like Bungie's really killing it at. Like, keep that balanced. But keep that feedback constructive, and just continue to push forward and set your expectations accordingly on what the game is versus what the game, what you wish the game to be. And I feel like that's a healthy mindset to keep us all here.
Yeah, there's something from my conversation with Bobby Sox, but it's always great when people tell the truth, but like speak for yourself and from your own personal experience, and don't dogpile because you saw somebody else upset.
Right.
If you haven't actually like stop and think like, do I actually care about that? Am I actually upset about that? Does it hurt me in any way? Or is it just like this person who I follow is upset and now I'm upset too? It's like, take a second, think about what's your experience, speak from that experience and say, hey, this was not fun. Here's why it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
Here's what I'd love to see instead.
Yep. And a great way to start that stuff off as well. Just simple things is for me. Or personally, this is what's been going on.
I use that so much.
As opposed, like, you can't, when we're talking about constructive feedback, just try to really push back against your perspective, your experience being an objective an objective experience that other folks, are in line with, that are other folks, like I'm speaking for everybody. I've made that mistake before with Quick Draw. Went on Twitter. Oh, I went hard for Quick Draw, just assuming too much that my experience, my corner of the Crucible was the widely felt, and whether it is or it isn't, you just can't make that assumption. That's not good feedback. The best feedback will always be just staying humble with it and saying, "Hey, personally, for me, this is what I know 100%. It's definitely true for me personally. This is what's going on with me. This is how it's affecting me, and then you just go from there. That's what you know for sure. 100% is true, as opposed to just assuming it's a wider felt sentiment."
And that leads me to say that I'm not only pumped about the Crucible, but I'm pumped about doing this podcast with Physics because not only because of this episode, but also because everything he just said, he's not afraid to call me out on either, because we were doing a different podcast. I don't know if you remember this moment, but we were doing a podcast with Dan Finity a while ago, and I was approaching the topic of something in the Crucible, and Physics was like, well, are you approaching that from you as like a content creator, like as a YouTuber, or like from the general player perspective? And I was like, oh wait, let me think about that. And it was still, but also like he's checking in on me and he's like, hey, is that like the right logic for this scenario? And I was like, oh, you're right. I do need to think about this from is this personally my perspective, or is this the general? Because it's so easy as a Destiny player and in the community that we're in, where we're all just together. Like, yes, it's great to see us come together to do big causes with Bungie and like charity events and stuff like that. But we also have a tendency to like come together to hate on a certain thing in the game. And it's like, am I doing this? Like, is this the general reaction, or is this me personally? So that's great. I'm pumped to do this show. Just wanted to say that real quick. I'm pumped for the rest of what this show is going to look like for a little while. It's really exciting to have Physics here with me.
Yeah. Likewise. And, just to kind of quickly add on to that, something that has always stuck with me as a content creator from a couple of years back is it's just like the two R's. When you speak about something, when you create content, is it relevant? Is it relatable? And if those two things are true, then I feel like you're going to find, your general widest like audience for what you're trying to say. And if both of those things aren't true, then you're, for example, not going to get a lot of likes on Twitter, you're not going to get, a lot of views or a lot of engagement and that sort of thing. So relevant and relatable. That's good. Relatable being a big one. Everybody wasn't relating to my crusade about Quick Draw. Everybody wasn't feeling it. I'm pretty sure I got a lot of blocks from Bungie. I'm sorry, a lot of mutes from Bungie and stuff like that from that. I mean, understandably so. And so I've just tried to be a little bit more, a wider perspective on it. Keep it relatable, relevant, constructive, and try to keep that frustration to a minimum. Lock it in, baby.
Just sweep it under the rug. No, we don't want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you got to step away. Breaks are good.
It is. They're super healthy. Yeah. And there are a lot of great games out there that are worth playing.
FPS or otherwise. Completely agree.
Yeah. Ton of great FPS is out. Ton of great genres of game that are completely different.
Mm-hmm.
That can scratch those other itches in the brain. But yeah, I'm super excited for you guys going forward. I can't wait to be tuning in every week. The patrons are already trying to say that I have to become a patron now to stay in the private channel. And I was like, no, I still do the Star Wars show. I still get a host credit, just barely. But so I'm really excited to become a fan now of Destiny Massive Breakdowns. So I can't wait. No pressure, but I will be listening every episode.
As you should.
Yeah. And that just puts the impetus on us too, to make sure it's always quality, and they're always doing our best. I mean, I feel like both of us are the type to type 0 or 100 type of people.
Yes.
But yeah, we got big shoes to fill. I think both of us kind of understand that, and we obviously want to also just live up to this community that you built, that you and Merc have built over the years. So, yeah, we take it seriously, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it, of course, as well.
Yeah. Wow. It's a big honor to be here, to have you invite us to do this thing. And in a greater honor to have you with me here, physics as well. So it doesn't go past me though, like how big of a deal it is to be here and kind of lead the show for a little bit. So we appreciate it, Coach.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, we'll make sure that you guys are both up to speed on how to manipulate the spreadsheet to find those numbers, those broken damage combos.
Yep.
Yes.
And I talked about this a little bit last week, but I finally forced myself to sit down and spend like 6 hours coding in damage reduction and overshields into the sheet. It was a lot of data entry, to be honest. It's less complicated than it sounds. It's more just like manual grind, copying and pasting cells. This is why I need to finish learning JavaScript so I can just like write functions once and call them. So much better. But we have spreadsheets, so yeah, it's got all kinds of fancy new toys.
Awesome
to play with.
And thank you.
Yeah. From the whole community, thank you. It's such a helpful resource.
Yeah.
So we'll have to find some time to sit down and play with that so that you guys can use it the way that I did live during the episode. I forgot we had this combo on this weapon. How does that work?
You always pull them up so quickly too. That's like I said before when we were talking, privately. The fact that, man, you're just so nice with those numbers and just recalling them quickly. Whether it be from memory or whether it be just manipulating the spreadsheet really quickly. And I just want to make sure that as we are, temporary hosts of massive breakdowns, that we come through with the numbers, in a way that, folks expect. Because it's obviously a good chunk of the show. Folks ask those questions. You gotta have those numbers.
Well, that's the beautiful thing is nobody has to learn any math on this show. We do the math for you. So, yeah. All right. Well, that's. Any other final big hits? Anything that was super important that you guys want to hit before we?
I am so glad you asked, because there was no way I was going to let this show end without mentioning one thing, baby.
Okay.
Airborne effectiveness slide nerf. Airborne effectiveness slide nerf. Skill-based matchmaking about to be everywhere. No longer can we. No longer can we necessarily lean into the fact that, airborne effectiveness and shooting guns from the air accurately will be, super oppressive. So I just want that feeling back. Baby, I just want that feeling back. And yeah, so I'd love to see those two change. I would truly. That's all I'll say about it.
Well, there's some kind of chance that I could potentially be in some playtests in the future internally where I'll have an opportunity to pass on feedback. So, when I say that the feedback has been heard, you
can trust that. You can trust that.
Yeah, you can. No, seriously though, you make what I think is a pretty valid point. And I'm just one person who doesn't know anything about the internal systems at this point in time. But the timing of those things was a little bit haphazard. And so, it's different. I know there are different teams working on this stuff. And so I don't know when we might see any changes in any regard. But it does feel like with skill-based matchmaking kind of hopefully starting to get into a sweet spot and fire team-based matchmaking coming out.
Yes.
Right. Maybe we don't need to be punishing players who are really good at shooting and moving at the same time.
Yeah, and let me just add, right? So on both sides of the skill spectrum, folks just wanting to jump in the air and hit some shots. It's very Destiny. That synergy between movement and gunplay. I'll leave it to folks on that side of the skill spectrum to maybe expand on that a little bit. But for me, on the relative higher end of the skill spectrum, I want that feeling back because it's removed a dimension of skilled play on that end. It's removed some variety, some spice from engagements. Man, anytime we get in the air, I shouldn't have jumped. I say that all the time. I shouldn't have jumped. I shouldn't have jumped for that shotgun shot. I shouldn't jump for that. And yesterday, I literally hit a hand cannon headshot to kill, not on Hawk Moon. I feel like Hawk Moon, it's fairly easy relative to other, hand cannons to hit those shots from the air as a hand cannon guy. But with just an Ice Luna, Like I hit a headshot from and I was surprised, shocked and amazed and just giddy, you know? And so just to, cap it off, variety in the engagements, when you've had that variety, when you've had that ability to, expand upon how you engage in a fight, going back to just, man, I can't jump because if I do, they're likely going to hit that shot pretty accurately from the ground, especially at a high level. People don't miss shots, and it's very unlikely that I'm not. When somebody jumps in the air at a high level in a high level gameplay type of situation, people lock in because they know that person's not going to hit their shots. All I got to do is just hit mine. I'm good, and I'm probably not even going to die. Especially if it's like hand cannon versus hand cannon. We've already talked about the TTK on a 4-shot versus a 3-tap, right? So yeah, I want that feeling back.
Well, and talk about an example of good feedback from personal experience.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me personally.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean that's exactly the kind of stuff that I think people need to hear on the platforms that they follow, and it's one of the reasons that I started following you, is that you were giving feedback like that, and I was like, okay, all right, finally found somebody who's not just super angry.
It took some time for me personally, so I'm glad I'm here too.
Well, let's end it here. So, any final thoughts on things that should change here? I want to say one, but I'll go last.
Lego? Should change as far as any of this stuff.
We'll end this on a spicy note.
It's spice. I am pretty I'm pretty good on set on the direction that they're taking everything. I'm curious to see where Trials goes after that. They talk about it for a second, but now, as we talked about earlier, a lot of the competitive scene moving to the actual competitive playlist. Curious to see what happens with Trials. I'm curious to see if Rumble playlist gets filled out when it comes around. And if the other playlists are packed and feel great, and SBMM, loose SBMM feels good in all those playlists. I'm excited about all that stuff. I will reiterate, the only thing I'm bummed about is still just the cosmetic rewards, a greater reason to grind for than just a number. Because while I did that before, I'm not going to be as inclined to do it now if if there's a bunch of new guns to play with and weapons. I'm not going to test that stuff in competitive, obviously. I'm going to bring my A game there. So it's how much time am I really going to commit to that playlist if there's no rewards there? That's something that I did once. Not sure if I want to do it again without rewards. But I do like that hand cannon, so we'll see what happens. So yeah, I don't really have anything that I would say I want to change right away. Because there's so many wins in here. Even we didn't talk about it, but you talked about it last week. The Crucible engrams, being able to focus them next season. The fact that the Fireteam matchmaking is happening next season. Iron Banner is getting a new mode that looks like it has PvE enemies in it or something. I don't even know. There's turrets, so who knows what's going on with that. It looks fun, though. It looks different, which is what I want from Destiny Crucible right now. It's just different, fun stuff. So I'm more pumped than anything. Wish there was some cosmetic rewards, and other than that, I'm whatever. It looks fun. I can't wait to jump in.
Yeah. For me, is it okay if I go now?
Oh. You already got yours. No, you can give one more.
Man, I can
this
go,
guy
man.
taking two.
I know. I forgot to mention one thing. It was private matches. Something I just want to continue to nail down on pretty hard.
Right.
Private matches. If you take a look at the TWAB, right, it looks like it was likely, as far as matches played, top 5 amongst all modes. Private matches. If what I'm reading, I can discern that correctly, because we're talking about average population was medium to low versus high, low, medium, those levels. But then also playtime per player was medium. There's only 4 other playlists that had medium or high playtime per player, right? So what that reads to me is that, it's a standout. Private matches amongst all the other modes. Private matches. Wow, people are playing for no XP. People are playing for no rewards, right? And so then we scroll up to where they talk about player experience goals specifically for private matches. They say, make the game you want. Play with your friends and stay as long as you're having fun. Real life comparison is game night with friends. And so, something that I tweeted out that is just as important, probably it might be number one with regards to a consideration for competitive is from my friend Lunars, Kasim. And he said, I saw them mention private matches a couple times in the TWAB. And I hope they aren't trying to say, well, if you don't like the current PvP landscape, the sandbox private matches seem appealing. Well, people are doing that already, like myself. So my hopes for ranked gameplay experience is that the sandbox is properly curated for that experience. Because if it's not rewarding game, that's the reason I don't want to play private matches. People that come to my stream, frequently, the majority of the time we're playing, my branded scrims, labs, illPhysics labs. And we do that the majority of the time. I don't play trials that much. I don't play regular Crucible that much. We just stay in private matches, and that queue stays full it could be a 24-hour stream, and that queue will stay full the entire time. I will always have folks improvement focused across the entire skill spectrum to play with that entire stream. Point being, folks just want rewarding gameplay where they feel like if they died because, if they died, there's something that they can do to change that outcome next time. And if they ended up getting a kill or if they ended up winning a game, they deserve that. They showed some intent with how they played in order to get that dub, whether it be in that individual engagement or whether it be in that game. And that's what we want the most out of the competitive experience, first and foremost. And whether it drops with all this other stuff or not, if it doesn't have a sandbox that's properly curated for that competitive experience, especially as we go higher, towards Ascendant, then, it's going to be a turnoff, especially for higher skill players, simply because of the fact that it's always been the case when you get to that level, people will understandably and non-judgmental, understandably gravitate towards the most effective tools in order to get it done. Because if you don't, somebody else is going to. And that's simply the way that it is. So just a rewarding, intrinsically rewarding gameplay experience, got to be number one. So,
man, that's great to bring that perspective. And when you started bringing it with the private match stuff with the medium low and medium playtime per player, because I was shocked by that too. When I read that, I was like, dang, like there's so many people playing private matches. But just where my mind is, because I play the game so differently, when you brought it up, I was like, oh, dang, especially with their goal description of it, it's like play how you want. I'm like, oh, they should add some more private match options. Like so many people are playing it. It's almost like a game mode in and of itself. And so my mind immediately went to like, what's like all the crazy stuff that people love. Like they can only do that in private matches.
No,
and
that'd
like,
be great. I really hope
man.
I really hope that that's the angle.
Yeah.
I really hope.
That it would be cool to see them also take that approach to it too, where it's like, because yes, it is important. Like that stuff should be in the competitive playlist, like that. The competitive environment where everything is as balanced as possible should be the competitive scene, and then private match could be that. That also to a degree where it's like, oh, well, we want to change it in this way or that way. But
yeah, it could be whatever. Yeah, it could be whatever. It truly can be whatever folks want it to be. But we just have a track record. I don't think I'm alone in saying we have a track record with regards to PvP and with regards to the competitive environment of PvP, where I felt it necessary to kind of make sure that we're on the same page with that. Yeah. Because it would ruin the experience to just have a bunch of overshields, heal nades, Lorentzes, like La Monarch still kind of making people play a certain way. I mean, again, it's not as if I don't want to ever see one of those things. It's always about just when you see all of that stuff, in one match, it just becomes super exhausting. And then when you have to equip that in order to compete as well, when it forces you off of playstyles, it forces you off of weapons and archetypes that I know the weapons team want, more and more variety and, more viability so that folks can enjoy the weapons that they want to enjoy. When it forces you off that stuff in order to go to just a very small subset just because you're, going towards Ascendant, I understand that's going to happen to a degree. Apex comp, for example, every season has certain team comps that are going to play the best. I understand that, but yeah, I'm not trying to go against, just a bunch of Arbalists and Lorentzes just to make the most obvious example. I know that isn't viable as much anymore, but that's my point.
Well, you got me even more excited now, though, to try it because of all the things we talked about in this episode with Survival, Rift, and Showdown being like the rotators, and how we talked about different classes being required, where we won't just see, I'm going to go into competitive playlists. Oh, it's 3 Void Hunters, and that's all I'm playing, like every single time, because we might be forced to see different things the way that they've curated it. So it just gets me pumped to try it.
I'm 100% with you on that. 100% with you on that. Could have a Bubble Titan, then maybe a Well that switches to Dawnblade if need be, but then you also have a third that is essentially going to be for sure a Neutralizer Super, a Blade Barrage, or a Chaos Reach. I think we're gonna see some variety. Note that I just mentioned, 3 separate classes. Like Blade Barrage will be a Hunter, Warlock can be the Chaos Reach or the Well, etc. And then you got the Bubble Titan with the Barricade. I think having one of each instead of enforcing one of each. Yeah, somebody's thinking back there for real.
Well, I am a huge fan of private matches getting all of the dials and knobs and sliders and like
spectator mode.
I want spectator mode. I want all of the like PvE modifiers to be options in private matches. Just like put I don't know what match game would do, but like all the other ones, the ones that make sense. Put Arc Burn as an option in private matches. Put Void Burn, put Stasis. Let people have some wacky game nights.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, the one piece of feedback that I hope gets addressed more seriously is that I think Bungie needs to pull Trials changes forward faster than they have indicated that they're going to. Because they're talking about Season 19, we're not doing a whole ton necessarily, and Season 20 we're gonna have a labs, and I'm like, ooh, so then maybe Season 21 we're actually gonna change the playlist. Like that's a long ways away. Like it's in a bad spot now. And I know they gotta test stuff, but it didn't feel like it had the urgency that playlist needs. I expected more about Trials in this TWAB than we got, and I super glossed over it the first time through because, like you said, Lego, there were so many W's in here that it's really hard to get too upset about it. And maybe competitive division comes out and it kicks butt, and we cannot worry too much about Trials. And maybe that's the hope. Is they're like, hey, we've only got so many man hours to develop these modes. We're putting a lot of work into getting this one right. And we're hoping it takes the spotlight off Trials, so we have more time to circle back and focus on it after this one's up and running. And that makes sense. I get it. Yeah. Limited resources.
Maybe the dubs, and again, maybe the dubs end up like the dubs with Fireteam matchmaking. The dubs with just competitive playlists serving that itch for competitive and leaving the folks that remain in Trials a little bit more chill. Maybe that ends up funneling down and
could be.
Fixes a couple things kind of on the back end, gives them a little bit of space to get to 1920. I do agree that there does need to, I feel like there does need to be a bit more of a sense of urgency for Trials. I do agree with that. Irrelevant of what sentiment changes with when we get competitive, but yeah.
Yeah. Keep in mind, we'll probably have, because they announced that they're going to have a new full armor set every year, I think, for Trials. So Lightfall we'll have a new, someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm speaking off of straight memory here, but that every year you get a new set. And so while 19 doesn't have much, we get the new comp rework 19, and then 20 comes, you have a whole new armor set for Trials, plus new weapons, plus you got Strand and all this other stuff going on. And it's then true. 21, that could be the good time to revamp it, which is kind of what it's looking like the plan might be. So that kind of, I could see it lining up that way, because there's a lot going on for the next 2 seasons at least, given there's so much Crucible stuff next season, and then season 20 will be Lightfall, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that seems like there's going to be a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. Them not wanting to change a core system when Lightfall drops, I can't I can't really be like mad about it. Like they don't want to dilute the Lightfall experience with Trials changes, because Trials changes inevitably, like 50% of people are going to hate it and 50% of people are going to love it. And like, they don't want to be distracting you from playing with Strand. It's totally fair. I don't know.
Yeah, Trials has it's got a special place in my heart too. Like more than anything, I want to see that tournament style gameplay like really show out and really be fun to play every weekend, because right now the ongoing joke is that, oh, you're putting yourself to Trials this weekend, and I personally enjoy it, but I know that the general sentiment online, on Twitter at least, is that it's going to be a pain to go and get that loot, and I would like to see that reversed as well.
Yeah
All right, well, we'll see more of what they've got for us in the future, but we do need to call this a wrap. So thank you again, gentlemen. And I'll go ahead and sign us off here, if you don't mind, here just for the last time. You guys can practice practice in the mirror the next 2 weeks here. You'll be ready for it. All right. Well, that does bring us to the close of another show of what actually is my final episode of Destiny Massive Breakdowns, at least for the next several months here. It's hard to say what happens beyond that. But we're looking at at least a pretty good long absence, maybe forever. Trying to make people cry here.
You're going for it.
Yeah.
So let's just do it right. Thanks everybody for listening. Please remember to like and subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're on, and whatever buttons you have in front of you to press. Do press them. Stick around. Hang out. You're in good hands. For more Destiny Massive Breakdowns, hit up the website, DestinyMassiveBreakdowns.com. It'll link you out to all the places, to the Twitter account for however, well, we'll see if we're still there in 6 months. I don't know. It links you to the Discord, which will definitely be around. And also links you to all the shows, as well as a bunch of handy resources. And, of course, the spreadsheet. So you can connect to everything there. Those other shows include Podcast Versus Enemies, hosted by Court, Impetus, and Saint Kabir. Your guides through the PvE endgame of Destiny 2, as well as Beneath Twin Suns, a Star Wars podcast hosted by myself and Mercules. You'll also find there a link to Patreon. If you would like to support the work being done by Destiny Massive Breakdowns, that's a great way to do it. All right. With that, I've been your host, Kid Ketcha. Gentlemen, if you wanna do your own sign-offs to spin here.
Yeah. This has been Lego, aka Legoleflash. You can find me here next episode, crazy as it is. And you can also find me on YouTube and Twitter.
Yep, and of course this has been illPhysics, aka Tony, if you did not previously know me. And you can find me on illPhysics on most platforms. But thank you to both Kit, of course, and to this awesome community. Looking forward to it.
All right. Peace, Guardians.